Welcome back, guys. We are going to be talking now about the impact that the Unbound reading had on us, the Currier writing, and then some kind of overall lessons from the week, the chapter. So innovation as a system, when you're looking at a specific like product innovation, that's one thing. When you're looking at how one product influences another, how one innovation allows another innovation to take place, you're talking about a system of innovations that may or may not be all connected with one company or one organization, one person. They may just influence one another. And that's what we saw in Chapter 8, The Technology of Precision Machinery. This chapter, as you guys read, is all about how one innovation over here was the reason we were able to do this over there. And I think it's a remarkable combination of different types of innovations that took place for completely unrelated reasons that provided the underpinnings of innovations to come. One of the ones that I thought was most interesting was the fact that the innovation of black powder and the ability to do blast furnaces and the smelting of the material that allowed us to create bullets and provide, you know, the more modern weapons that we have today. And I think Richard Currier does an excellent job of kind of taking us through the history of how we get from, you know, point A all the way through point Z. None of these things are related to each other, but they provide the impetus to be able to move to the next level in a lot of these different areas. The introduction with the clocks in China were also like sort of an amazing innovation in helping people to keep time compared to the way time was kept with you know, hourglasses and water wheels and things that were just incredibly inefficient. You can of course understand the consequences of both of those innovations, not necessarily good or bad. In the case of time, of course, you know, we now have a much more rigid look at the way that we keep track of time, and it becomes something that sometimes is very stressful when obviously if you're looking at having time by a water wheel, which kept really more the month than it did, you know, the minutes, to a watch that keeps, you know, precision time, a very big difference. And the more lethality of weaponry, when you went from a cannonball coming out of a cannon that wasn't completely smooth, could go anywhere, including killing the person who was loading the cannon, to the precision of modern day weaponry, which can, you know, kill someone from 18 miles away. So really some remarkable ways of pulling innovation together to help us understand how it works in a system type capacity. So when we're looking at all the idea of systems, we take into consideration the organization itself. And at the heart of every organization are the cultural assumptions and values of that organization. And around that, the things that take place that allow innovations to become, you know, part of that organization. So the communication processes that are in place. And you see habits everywhere around this, this graphic, because it is the habits that really guide us through our organizational relationships. So we communicate in a habitual way, technology is introduced in a habitual way, we have work processes that are not just habits but can become, you know, inertia in organizations, really preventing innovation from taking place. And we've talked exhaustively, I know, about organizational structure and systems and how that can either facilitate innovation or not. And of course the people. And we'll talk about that in a few more slides, how the people's innovativeness and willingness to be part of an innovation is really important in getting diffusion to take place. Now we look a little bit at Ford here. I remember when One Ford was in place. If you guys haven't been at Ford for a long time, you may not even remember this, but this was a remarkable undertaking when Ford was really having a tough time, and when this was put in place, the idea behind it was to reduce the competition within the different divisions and different geographies at Ford, and to get everyone thinking toward, a successful One Ford. And it was highly criticized when it first came out, and but I remember thinking, well, this will be interesting if he can pull this out. This will be great. And I remember it was probably a couple of years after the beginning of the One Ford thought process. I was at the Frankfurt Auto Show, and I was writing a piece for my company, and it was all about a mom at the Frankfurt Auto Show. So if you've never been to the Frankfurt Auto Show, it is probably 10 times what we have here in Detroit. The number of innovative products are incredible. The number of vendors that are there are amazing. I mean, they're done kind of, maybe by country, I can't quite remember, but like Mercedes is like the size of Kobo. So it's gigantic. And my objective was to pick out a car that would be for an American mom, because a lot of the cars that were at the Frankfurt Auto Show were, not very practical from the standpoint of what a mom would need. But at one point, I saw the Ford C-Max. This was a brand new car at the time, and it was Ford's, entry back into the minivan market. So, as a mom, of course, it was something that was interesting to me. And I climbed up on the little diag where it was sitting and asked the model, or the person who was representing it, about the car. I asked her to tell me about the car, and unfortunately she didn't really know much about it. And I had a couple questions and was really interested in the features, and a young woman just sort of stepped up and she said, well, what would you like to know about the car? She said, I work for Ford in, I can't remember, I think it was like Norway or something like that. I mean, it wasn't Germany, which is where I was. She was coming from somewhere else, and she really felt a responsibility to help me as a consumer to understand her product. She was very proud of it and was very happy to demonstrate her ability to go outside of her own space and step in to be a representative of One Ford. And I thought it was really, and she even said, now we are One Ford, and so we're all part of helping each consumer and all on one team to accomplish one goal. And I thought, wow, he really did it. So Alan Mullally's thought process was really a foundational cultural change for Ford to stop thinking about things in little isolation, little islands, and instead think about what can I do today to help Ford move forward. And I think that foundation has allowed Ford to move forward into smart choices for value creation. So all of the types of technology that you're looking at now, like things like autonomous technology and propulsion choices, those are going to require the innovation not only of everyone at Ford, but outside of Ford, right? You're going to have to be able to bring partners in and have a single way of thinking about Ford. No longer are geographies going to be able to do these things on their own, because the technology itself is much more complicated, and you really do have to think about it systematically. So things like autonomous vehicles, for instance, it's not just about the car itself, it's about the infrastructure and the technology and sharing data so that the car knows where it's supposed to go and how to stop and what's around it. A lot of this technology really requires thinking that is beyond what any one company can do. And along these lines, we look at a company like Apple and how they do things. And there is a video that's embedded in this slide deck that we won't have time to watch, and it doesn't really work very well, remote. but I would encourage you guys to watch it. It's quite long, but it really is a terrific, it's a product announcement for the new Apple Watch. And what you will see in it is a culmination of systems, their ability to take what they have learned and apply it as they move forward into new innovation and new technology. And what they learn allows them to open up what it is that this watch can do. And I think when you think about the 6 P's of innovation, when Apple thinks about innovation, they think about people and pricing, the promotion, how do we get this out, the product itself, of course, the place of, where this product is going to be introduced, and the process by which they're going to roll this out. So, and let's see. So the next slide here, we look at some of the products as they rolled out across time, and you see that the technology of something that came before it helped to influence what it's able to do in the next iteration. Now, oh, here's the slide I want to show you. So at the bottom of this slide, and I want you guys to open these slides up individually so that you can click on this link. This is a great, it really is a great just video from Apple, and it gives you a lot of great information on the new Apple Watch and what they're introducing in this Apple Watch. If you guys don't have one or don't know about it, this is a couple years old, this was the watch that was able to really become more of a health monitor. So obviously the Apple Watch is way beyond, something that I wear on my wrist, right? We can get your mail and your pictures, and you can talk on the phone, and your calendar is right there. You've got messaging coming through, and now it's keeping track of your health. So it's an amazing innovation for people to be able to adopt a better viewpoint on how to take care of themselves and how to be advocates for themselves. So it even can do an ECG, which I am actually one of the people that this product is aimed at, because I have AFib, and so my heart will go into an erratic rhythm. I'm fortunate enough that I can feel it, so I know it's happening and I can, help myself. But this watch will help you do it, because a lot of people, like this is a genetic thing, it's in my family, and a lot of my cousins can't feel it. They don't know when their heart is in AFib. And if you're not particularly healthy, AFib is a serious catalyst for stroke. And so many of my cousins are at risk. They're not healthy. And so they really have to be able to know. And so this watch, the new Apple Watch, actually keeps track of your heart rhythm. And it can send you a little alarm that says, okay, we're getting an erratic heartbeat here. Take an ECG. And you put your finger on the watch, and the watch is connected to your wrist. It can feel your heartbeat. And then you put your finger on the crown, and it will take an ECG, which is an electrocardiogram. And this is something that, the announcer will tell you historically has only been available through a doctor's office or a hospital or a clinic, and now you can take this on your own. And they go a step further, where this data is then put into a PDF for you, and you can mail it to your doctor. And I remember talking to my doctor a year ago about this watch, and he absolutely recommended, he said that would be great for you, because that way when you know what's going on, you can take the ECG, you can send it to me, and you can also tell me what you're doing, so that I can get a better idea of what's causing the AFib. So it's really an amazing contribution to humanity in being able to help us manage our own health. The other thing that the Apple Watch was able to do that they talked about was it can sense a fall. And I have a mother-in-law who doesn't walk very well. She's 87, and she's not in the best health, and she took a fall a few weeks ago and ended up in the hospital for a week, and then rehabilitation. And one of the scariest parts about it was that she lives on her own, and this is what she wants to do. It's very difficult to talk her into anything else. And she has one of those little clickers, but she didn't have it with her. It wasn't something that she normally carries with her. And so when she fell, she was by herself, and she was in her garage, and by nothing but a miracle, her neighbor happened to see her. Well, now the Apple Watch, if we could get her to wear it, we'll see, can actually sense that she has fallen, and it brings up a little SOS so that you can push the button and EMS can come. It'll send the location where you are. Obviously, you are with the watch. And if you don't respond or don't move for a minute, it will call EMS automatically and send them to the location where the watch is. So again, a remarkable contribution by a technology company toward our health. So again, at a systems view level, right, we're thinking beyond a particular product, we're thinking beyond a particular market, and we're saying, what kind of a contribution can we make in general? What technology do we have? How can we pull it together? What else can we do with these things to make a bigger contribution and to create more relative advantage, right? Because that's really what we're looking for. When we're talking about diffusion of innovations, we're talking about relative advantage. And if you can prove to someone that their health can be improved by wearing a watch, how much better can it get? So these are some of this is more the conclusion, right? So this is going to pull together everything that we've talked about so far, and this will be the conclusion of the chapter. So the key principles in learning, cultural assumptions, and value. And innovation can have multiple meanings. Meanings are in people. So everybody is looking at an innovation differently. We saw that very much in Unbound. Everybody can take a little bit of something and say, wow, what can I do with that? I need something that can do that. And what can this do? It might have been made for something completely different, and I'm able to apply it and move my innovation forward. Resistance to adoption is a valuable source of information about underlying assumptions and values. So if something's not working, doesn't make sense, this isn't going the way I thought, we have to dig underneath and figure out what it is about the culture, about the value system that may be blocking the innovation from moving forward. Technology change that involves integration across cultures, et cetera, is inherently more difficult, no question about it. You got a global organization, you're trying to roll something out that might be something that maybe the Americans think is terrific, and the French are like, what are you talking about? I don't want this. So it becomes much more difficult, and you need a lot of advocates that are local, that understand the culture, that understand the values, that can help you interpret. Culture is resistant to change and a strong driver of behavior, even in the face of failure. This is a very sad thing that companies will go out of business rather than change in some giant capacity in the face of disruption. And we have seen it over and over again, and we will continue to see it. And that is habits and inertia that really prevent us from moving forward and seeing what really is best for the company. So environment and context, what the environment requires or allows is critical to adoption or rejection of a new technology. Again, the greater the perceived need to adopt for survival, the greater the likelihood of perceived relative advantage. So the Apple Watch is a perfect example here, right? When you're talking about personal survival, this watch can actually help you to maintain a healthier lifestyle, to react appropriately in the case of an emergency. So that is a really strong relative advantage. But in a lot of cases, when companies are looking at disruptions in their industry, that relative advantage is really tough to see, because that disruption might be very different from what we do as a company and might actually be replacing what we do as a company. And we've got lots of examples of that, like digital cameras that came out, and that that digital technology replaced film. Well, Kodak makes film, so how do we expect Kodak to get on board and let go of film? But the ironic thing is if they didn't, which they didn't, someone else is going to do it. So you can either take the technology and figure out how to manage it, accept the fact that it's better and that people are adopting it, or someone else is going to drive you out of business. And this happens over and over and over again. We see it all the time. So it's very important that the environment be accepting of new disruptions and new innovations. Yes. So cultural assumptions and values shape how the environment is perceived and can become maladaptive to the environment over time. No question. So, your environment can literally push out an innovation that could have saved the company. So know that, even if within the organization people are saying, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense, this makes perfect sense. If it really doesn't make sense, if you see that this innovation is happening over here, companies will make decisions that literally will, drive them out of business. So technology just demonstrating observable results dramatically increases perceived advantages. We've seen this over and over again, and many examples in the reading in this chapter, in this module. Technology will fail if it's introduced without regard for the rest of the system. No question about it. I mean, people can just reject things that make perfect sense. I think, one of the best examples is the boiling water in the Peruvian village. I mean, there's no question that would have helped them, and yet they completely disregarded it because the nurse didn't understand, how to introduce it and what was going to be important. It is technology in relationship to the rest of the social, cultural, technical system that is important in adoption or rejection. So it is all about how things work in conjunction with each other, and how that innovation is going to either help or change those processes. And that's really the next piece of it is a change in technology almost always requires a work process redesign, and in order to realize the benefits of the new technology, a change in work process can lead to a change in cultural assumptions and values over time. Habits are difficult to change and can work for or against you in technology change. So this is a really important slide because it cannot be stressed enough that work processes absolutely will change, especially when you're introducing, technology. So computers and software, they are made to change a process. That's the whole idea behind it. We're going to try to improve the process. We're going to try to improve the way we deal with our customers, shorten the amount of time they stay on hold, whatever it is going to change the process, and it is going to require people to change and learn and to change their skills. And that is a really hard thing for people to do. Habits are difficult to change, and a lot of people, they're just not capable of doing something else. I worked for a guy, this was several years ago, at Polk, and he introduced a new system at Polk, and it was a new computer system, and the customers, Ford, one of them, couldn't wait to get their hands on it. They were so excited about it, and it required some changes to the back end of the Polk systems, and there was great resistance to this. And this was, my boss's boss at the time, and he said to me, because I was really frustrated that people weren't getting on board. I had come from a technology company, and change was something that was totally rooted in me. It was something I looked forward to. This was not a bad thing. And so I really resented the fact that the company, a lot of people in the company just kept pushing back on this improvement. And he said he has seen it over time for years and years and years. And he said, I can only expect to get about 80% of the people on board. He goes, and that is fantastic. That is a gigantic success. He said the rest of the 20% generally will have to leave. So it's not necessarily something that we think about, right? And at a leadership level, he's like 3 or 4 levels up from me, right? It's more of a strategic viewpoint, right? Not everybody is going to be able to get on board. And depending on the level of disruption, the level of innovation, the amount of skills that are going to be required to change, if there is a relative advantage that is seen by, levels up in the company, and this must take place in order to survive, you can bet there's going to be quite a bit of turnover in order to get this, to take place. And I think, Ford is seeing some of that as well. Understand that is a normal part of disruption and innovation, because if people can't change, if they're not willing to upgrade their skills, then there's just not much you can do. You can't do it the old way forever. Let's see. Okay, so we've kind of talked about this. Rewarding people for desired behavior will help initiate and sustain change. So if you know that you need to get, 50 or 60% of the people to change, know that there's some number out there that is your goal. Rewarding people for this desired behavior, finding people that are innovative themselves, that are willing to do something new, that might become the example, right? They're the observable success. That perhaps encourage other people to try something out, right? And at least get through the complexity and understand the the advantages of it. So organizational structures and systems will need to change and have to be there in order to support the new innovation. So people, the user's point of view is critical to adoption or rejection. Skill requirements often change with new technology and can require more skill or less skill from individual employees, as well as different skills. People's interactions with their peers have a great influence on technology adoption. So we just kind of talked about that. People are very important to this, and obviously you can't turn over your entire company in order to make a change. But you have to understand that some people will and some people won't. And you've got to do the right thing, make the right incentives so that more and more people are encouraged to improve their skills and take on the new innovation. I'll give you another quick story. This was many years ago, and I can't even remember the year, but Volkswagen was having a very tough time, and they had a very, I'm going to say old, but not necessarily in years, a workforce that wasn't open to change, and they really had to make a number of changes. And what they did was they decided they were going to move the headquarters, and they moved it from Detroit, which is where they were, to Nashville. And generally when companies move, what happens is they give people moving packages. Well, that did happen at Volkswagen, but it was very infrequent. So what they did was they chose the people that they saw as innovative and what they needed to move Volkswagen forward, and they didn't provide moving allowances for the rest of the people. And I don't remember the number, but it was huge. And when they got to their new location, I'm sorry, it wasn't Nashville, it was Virginia. When they got to the new location, they started hiring new people. And they took people, instead of out of a typical automotive environment, they took it out of consumer products. And so that was the thinking that they wanted. And so they completely changed their structure and their organization and their culture by changing the people. Now that's pretty radical, pretty extreme, but that's what they decided to do. So a lot of times disruption, when it's introduced, requires radical change, and people are at the heart of that. So as you guys obviously are looking to improve your skills, with a master's degree, you are not the the norm. So you are the innovators, and that's a great thing. And you will be the leaders that will help people to move forward. It will be your job to translate and to make sure people in your culture and your social system understand, the advantages of what's happening. Oops, not working. There we go. And communication, so communication process, technology that requires integration and interdependence will require more people who can communicate across cultural boundaries, just what we've just said. So those that are more innovative, that can handle the communication and can interpret for the others and help them understand the relative advantage, will be the leaders going forward. And that's going to be an important thing in order for companies to survive in this global world. So that is the end of the presentation. So